Welcome back to another We Ourselves video. And today I want to talk about this persistent claim that there is superhero fatigue and therefore Marvel has to do something different. Now, when we talk about this, we all know that yes, there is fatigue, but it's not fatigue with superhero movies, it's fatigue with the bad writing. I don't know why the Access media keeps insisting on denying the real problem, and that's that we are getting substandard stories. And in that light, I would like to talk about something that's related to that keeps coming up, particularly from Black content creators on YouTube. When we talk about the lack of stories, some of the biggest problems we see are with the Black characters. We aren't learning anything about them. But I think even we sometimes shy away from being really explicit about what we're seeing because we're all ignoring the big elephant in the room. Comic book fans, as well as MCU fans, can complain about the lack of good representation for the Black characters, but what we're failing to say straight out is that what we're dealing with is a systemic bias within Marvel. And for me, that bias is a Hollywood bias when it comes to Black characters. When you think about a show like Good Times, we all know the stories about how Esther Rolle really fought to keep John Amos, the father on the show, because from season 1, the producers, Norman Lear and the writers, they wanted to get rid of the Black male father. That show came out a long time ago, and even then, there's this persistent negative stereotype that most Black kids are born to single moms. But even if we accept that, and a lot of people don't, even if we accept that, why does that get all the notice? Why don't you focus on the ones who do have moms and dads when it comes to our media? Why is there a push to maintain that negative stereotype? Why can't Black people have wish fulfillment? You don't think people who might not have had a father might not want to see a character on screen who has a father? Why can't we have wish fulfillment? The fact that we are disproportionately, given our population size, we're the largest representation of people to go to see these movies, we go and make movies that show fathers interacting with the main characters, male or female. We go and make those movies popular. So obviously we don't have a problem with seeing fathers on the screen, and we actually want that. And so what I'm saying is what Marvel and modern Hollywood has done for me is very diabolical, because when you look back at a show like Good Times, the people who did not want the father on there, they owned up to it. Norman Lear and the other people, they wanted the father off. They wanted to focus on the son, and they wanted the father out of the family unit. They were heavy on playing up that negative stereotype, and they eventually wrote him off the show. And both John Amos and Esther Rolle, they fought to keep him on that show, but they eventually lost. But come forward all of these decades later, and when we get the Black characters, the only female characters that never get any father figures are the Black characters. The white characters get it. The Caucasian characters get it. The other characters of color get it. Zoe Saldana got it, but I think it's because she was painted green, and so you could forget that she was a biracial woman. But she got a father. But when it comes to the straight up Black characters, no fathers. And likewise for the Black male characters. And so what's happening is, way back when, the producers owned up to the fact that they were the ones that were trying to get rid of these father figures, and they did not want that image portrayed to a Black audience. But now Marvel is more diabolical. They get Black writers and directors and producers to do the dirty work for them, so that when we complain, and we're pointing fingers first and foremost at those Black intermediaries. And to me, that's far more diabolical, because you still feel the same way that the Norman Lears of the world felt way back when they were doing a show like Good Times, but instead of owning up to it, you're hiding behind Ryan Coogler, Nia DaCosta, Nate Moore, and I keep forgetting the guy's name, but the guy who wrote Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And it's bull, and I think so many times we're shying away from saying that there's a systemic bias within Marvel. It's not individual people making decisions, although there are at the top levels, which is why the NAACP and other people says you need more Black representation, meaningful Black representation at the decision level. But what we're doing is we're ignoring the systemic bias within the Marvel process. And that's a big underlying problem, particularly where we are now, when you have chosen Sam Wilson to be the next Captain America, but you've given him absolutely zip. And you had a Black showrunner, an experienced showrunner who knows how to write media for Black people. He was there. So either he fell down or he had to succumb to the Marvel process, which he says in an interview with Kevin Smith. And I keep telling people to go and watch that interview. Falcon and the Winter Soldier should have been his version of the first Thor movie or the first Iron Man movie or the first Captain America movie. It should have been the time for you to establish Sam Wilson as a human being and a person with a background and connections and family and loves and loss and all that stuff, but you didn't. You spent half the time focusing in on Bucky, who we already know his story, but you gave him even more. And so we didn't know representation. We still don't know who this man is. You know, the actor who played Rhodey complained that you don't even know who he is. Don Cheadle complained about that. And then you have Nia DaCosta, who comes in and all the sister girl talk and the playing up the women, but yet for some reason when it came to Kamala Khan's family, the black woman who was married to the older son in the show, she was snapped away. Again, you have to ask, did Nia DaCosta know that she existed? Was she turned down? Was she forced to get rid of this character? And just to make sure she was gone, near the end of the movie, the mom makes a comment to the older brother like he isn't even married. So how is it that a black woman can totally excise a black woman who was part of the show and was married to the older son, but she's nowhere to be found in the movie that's helmed by a black female director? We can talk for days and days about Ryan Coogler and making T'Challa's son fatherless, even though the actor Chadwick Boseman did not like that. In his commencement speech at Howard, the thing he chose to tell all these black, highly educated kids was his first example when he was on the show, and when he was playing a character, his first question to the producers was, where's his father? And of course, he lost the job and Michael B. Jordan took his place, ironically. So we know how he felt, and in the first Black Panther movie, he argued with his father on the ancestral realm about leaving Eric alone in America and not bringing him back to Wakanda. But yet, in the second movie, they give him a fatherless child who's outside of Wakanda in one of the poorest countries in the hemisphere. Totally upending what the actual actor felt about fatherless black kids and boys. So it's like, how can you explain all these talented black creators who are now the face of this lack of representation or this subpar representation? It's a continuation of what you saw all those decades ago with Norman Lear and all those people on Good Times. They wanted that black male gone, and so they've gone out of their way to not give us any black males in the MCU. Monica Rambeau could have had a talk with her father. Again, I've done a video. She was in WandaVision. WandaVision had the most episodes of any of the Disney Plus Marvel shows. There was plenty of space and room for you to have at least one scene after she comes back. You could have had that one scene at her mom's place. She could have been there. She could have been looking at the plane that she remembers as a girl. And the father shows up, has a talk with her, and gives her that needed push that lets her go into Haywood's office. I said that in my other video. One scene. There was plenty of time to do it in that show, even though she was a secondary character. And I have to disagree with people who are saying that, well, we couldn't do that because she was a secondary character. That's baloney. Echo was a secondary character in the Hawkeye series, but yet she got that same Marvel treatment that all the other women get in Marvel, except for the black women. You saw her with her father. We got that quick flashback, okay? So no, other secondary characters get that. Again, even in the She-Hulk show, as bad as it was, she had time with her father. It's the standard MCU operating procedure to have a female character get advice from the dad. But the only time they don't do that is when it comes to the black character. So all these decades later, we're still having the same biases at work. They're just dogged persistent to keep putting that negative stereotype of black people out there that there are no fathers in the home. But at least with the Norman Lears and the people way back when with All in the Family, they acknowledged that they were the ones that were pushing that. Nowadays, you have the executives, the Kevin Feige's and all of them that are hiding behind black writers, directors, and producers. They're allowing them to be out front and to take the hits from our community when we complain about the lack of good representation. And to me, again, that's weak, that's cowardly, and that's diabolical, in my opinion. So yeah, we can keep talking about it being hero fatigue and we're going to do changes and stuff like that, but unless you're going to address the systemic bias inside of the MCU, all of that's going to be for nothing unless you're just going to jettison all of the black characters or move them way into the background. And that's really progressive, isn't it? I just thought I had to talk about this because people keep persisting and the access media is perpetuating this lie that people are just tired. No, they're tired of the bad story writing. And some of the bad story writing is the way that you're doing these black characters who are now been pushed to the front, and you aren't giving us anything comparable to what you gave to even second string white and other people of color characters. The evidence is there over and over and over again consistently, so nobody can deny it. The nicest thing that you can say is this systemic bias, and until that's addressed, you're going to have a big problem, and you're going to continue to have a big problem. So anyway, that's my thoughts on this matter. As always, like, subscribe, let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.